This is not my story. It's my aunt, but it's still scary as fuck. This all started in the fall of 1998. I don't remember much, as I was 8, but I do know what my aunt told me. And now, it's been so long, it's probably safe to tell. She and my ex-uncle lived in a small one-bedroom apartment in a fairly nicer area of town. There were definitely some more crime-ridden areas not far from there, but the complex was gated, and you needed a code to get in. Anyway, around early October, quite a few people, including my aunt, started reporting seeing a suspicious man walk around the complex. He was caught looking in windows of people's apartments and their cars as well as their storage areas. And management was able to confirm he didn't live there. This all happened until around Halloween, when things really went off the rails. According to my uncle, he caught the man snooping around my aunt's car and decided to confront him, and the man ran away. Again, this was hearsay from my uncle. When he ran, he dropped a bag that my uncle brought into their apartment. He wouldn't let my aunt open it and claimed he was going to turn it in to the police, which we thought he had, as one day he no longer had this bag anymore. Months go by, and this man is still creeping around, but only near my aunt and uncle's apartments, cars, and storage area, and nowhere else. My aunt called the police many times, and by the time they'd show up, the man would always be gone. It's now January 1999. Here's the part I remember, as I was at my Nana's when this happened. My aunt called my grandpa in hysterics. She caught the man with his face pressed on the glass of her bedroom window, watching her while my uncle was away on a work trip, and when he realized he was caught, he tried to break open her window and get inside. My grandpa grabbed his .45 and headed out to the car, with my Nana and I following him all the way, begging him to let the cops handle it, and if he was going to go, leave his gun at home. He didn't. It took quite a few hours for my grandpa to finally return home, but when he did, this is what he told us. This man was in an apartment complex dealing drugs. My uncle stole his supply and refused to give it back or pay him for it. And we later found out it was because he was using it himself, as well as selling. So he was planning to kidnap my aunt, among other things, to get his money. I'd like to say this is the thing that made her divorce him, but unfortunately, they stayed married for 10 more years after this. So, this was back in 2016. I had moved to Iowa, which I had lived in Illinois all my life. I lived with my mom's friend and her kids, and they were pretty religious, so I went to a Catholic school with her kids. It was probably a 15-20 minute walk from our house to the school, and we walked that way every morning and afternoon. I don't think there were buses at that school, which is why we walked. There was 6 of us, 4 of them being older than me, and 1 being younger than me. I don't really remember why the 3 older brothers didn't walk with us, but they didn't. It was my friend, who I had lived with, and she's older than me, her younger brother, and me. We were walking home like normal, and there was a lot of stores around. I vividly remember one, which was halfway between home and school. We were almost to Hy-Vee, and this random guy stopped us. He was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, nothing abnormal. He asked us if we had a phone he could use, because he was in deep trouble. We did, but not for him. So we declined and said he could probably use one at a store. He was pretty frantic and told us we couldn't move. We were in middle school, so it was scary. He had jumped in the street after us and tried opening car doors. It was a pretty busy street. People were getting off work and out of school. Once he turned his back, I grabbed my friend and her brother and ran. People pulled over and asked if we were okay, and they blocked his view of us so we could go home. We talked to the police and filed a report, but I don't think anything ever happened to the guy. I moved, a few months after, back to Illinois, but I think about this guy pretty much every day. I don't know who he was, if he got caught, or what would have happened if he got the car door open. Just glad my friends and I made it home okay. It was April of 2008. I was 20 and living in Denver for a year-long work contract with a non-profit in Boulder. My girlfriend, now wife, and my best friend Tom drove to Colorado from our home state to visit me for my 21st birthday. The non-profit I was working for housed their workers in dorm rooms, and drinking was not allowed on site, nor were visitors allowed to stay overnight. So I booked a hotel room in downtown Denver for the weekend where we could drink in honor of my 21st. The hotel was big, very nice, and in a safe central area of the city. So nice, in fact, that it was the same hotel that most of the politicians would later stay at during the DNC convention of '08 that took place in Denver later that summer. My wife and Tom arrived Saturday morning, and we all met up at the hotel. The day was fantastic. We drank across the city most of the day. By about 1 a.m., we got back to the hotel. The room was typical, with 2 queen beds. Bed 1 was close to a big window looking out across the city. Bed number 2 was pushed against the wall with a door that opened to the bathroom. You couldn't see that door/entryway to our room unless you were at the foot of bed 1. We drank more and chatted in the room until about 4 a.m. My wife was laying at the head of bed number 2. Flipping through the TV, Tom and I were seated at the foot of bed number 1, staring at the window as we talked. As we talked, I heard some movement and the sound of a door opening. Without looking away from the window, I assume it was my girlfriend getting up to use the bathroom. A few minutes passed by, and I thought I heard movement again. So I finally turned around to look. I saw my wife, still lounging on bed 2, as she had been. "Did you get up a few minutes ago and use the bathroom?" I asked her. "No," she replied. "I thought I heard a door," I said back to her, with her just looking confused at me. "Yeah, I thought I heard that too," Tom said, breaking his own gaze from the window. It was then I started to run cold and sobered up pretty quick. Very softly, I heard Tom say, "I think someone is in our room." I lurched forward from the foot of the bed to look into the pitch-black entryway. I could barely make it out, and I wanted to believe I wasn't seeing it. But there was a man dressed in all black, with a black baseball cap, pressed into the 90-degree corner of the entryway where the room door and wall met. Absolute silence fell in the room. It felt like hours passed by, and I started to panic in my mind like no way I ever have in my entire life. We all knew we wasn't alone and hadn't been for quite a while, and he knew we spotted him. Eventually, Tom got the courage to meekly speak in the direction of the entryway and said, "Hey man, is there anything we can help you out with?" Another period of silence that felt like an eternity went by. He slumped off the edge of the wall into a little light and made eye contact with Tom and I. We all just stared at each other, then eventually spoke up and said, "Is this room 1709? "No, man, it's not," Tom said, stroking his beard nervously. He stared at us for a little while longer, raising his eyebrows and shaking his head. He then turned around and left. We then erupted into a million curse words and paced around the room. I called the front desk. They told me that he was drunk, and they found him in the stairwell, but directed him back to the right room. Minutes later, Tom called the front desk, and they told him he was not a guest. He was apprehended in the stairwell and taken into police custody. Then a while later, they told my wife he disappeared and had no idea who he was or what he was doing. They told her there wasn't even a room 1709 in the hotel. We got 3 different stories. We still have no idea what this was about or how he managed to get a key card to our room. We were sure the door was closed. It was easily the most terrifying moment in my life. Always use the latch in hotel rooms. We got the stay refunded and about $200 in credit for food from the hotel. We should have sued, but we were young and dumb.